You're welcome to this tutorial lesson. So in this lesson, we will be looking at radical equations and quadratic inequalities, how to solve radical equations, and also how to solve quadratic inequalities. So we are given a problem here to solve that we should solve. This in square root 15 minus 2x is equal to x. So if you're talking about radical expression, these are radical expressions. When you have a number inside a root, is a radical expression. This is also a radical expression because it is inside a root. So whenever you have a number in a root, it is called a radical expression. So radical equations now tells you, is basically telling you when you equate a radical expression into a number, just as in this case. Now we have the square root of 15 minus 2x is equal to, so because of this equality sign now, is equal to x. Because of this equality signs, it now becomes a radical equation because you now have an equality sign, that is the equal to sign, that now makes it a radical equation. But this is the radical expression, whereas this makes it a radical equation. So let's go ahead and solve it. How do we solve this problem? Now we have 15 minus 2x in square root is equal to x. How do we solve it? So to solve this is very simple. We must understand a basic law or principle. Here is what I mean. Remember in our previous class when we talked about quadratic equation and how to solve for it, how to solve for the unknown like x. If we are faced a problem that is in the form of this nature, where we have x squared is equal to 4 and we are solving for x. So for us to solve for x, all we need to do is just to take the square root of both sides so that the square root can cancel the square. If you take the square root of both sides, uh, the square root can cancel this square and you'll be left with x, which is equal to the square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. And the same thing applies if, for example, you have 50. If, for example, you have 5x squared, for example, is equal to, let's say, is equal to 25. So how do you solve for x here? You first of all divide both sides by the coefficient of x, which is 5. So 5 will cancel 5 here. So x squared is equal to 25 divided by 5 will give you 5. But you are not solving for x squared, remember. You are solving for x. So for you to solve for x, you are going to take the square root of both sides so that the square root can cancel the square and your x will be alone. Square root can cancel square. You will be left with x equal to the square root of 5. And this is your answer. So that is how you can eliminate a square. How you can eliminate a square. So you can only eliminate a square by taking the square root of both sides. That is how you can eliminate a square. Then how do you eliminate a root? For example, if you have the root of x equal to 4. So for example, how do you eliminate the root now? if you want to calculate for x in this case, how do you remove this root so that x will be on its own? So recall, when you were calculating for x, when x is squared, you can only remove the square by taking the root. So if you want to remove the root, you should also take the square of both sides. Yes, so this will be, you take the square of both sides, it will now be x, the square root of x squared is equal to 4 squared. So now this square, the square will cancel this root, so your x will be on its own, and this 4 square will give you 16. So basically this is how you remove a root. So square cancels root, and root also cancels square, so they are canceling each other. So whenever you're faced with a problem that involves you removing a square, you use a root, and whenever you are faced with a problem that involves you removing a root, you use a square to remove it. So similarly, if you have x plus 4 inside a square root, let's say is equal to 5. So how do you solve it? You can solve it because you want to remove the root first. So for you to remove the root is by taking the square of both sides. So this will now be the square root of x plus 4 squared, remember is for the both sides, is equal to 5 squared. Now the square can cancel the root, you'll be left with x plus 4, which is equal to 5 squared will give you 25. So for you to calculate for x, you have to take 4 to the other side. This will be x is equal to 25 minus 4, and that will be x is equal to 21. So this is how you remove the roots given a particular expression. So let's go back to our original problem. We want to solve for the square root of x minus 15. The square root of 15 minus 2x equal to x. So this is how you go about it. It will be solution now. So this will be the square root of 15 minus 2x is equal to x. How do we solve it? You want to remove this root. So the first thing we have to do is to square both sides. So this will now be the square root of 15 minus 2x squared is equal to x squared. So that the root, the square can cancel the root, and you'll be left with 15 minus 2x is equal to x squared. So you are not done with the calculation. You keep the values to be on one side. So this will be x squared. Let me use my board. So our problem was we are having 15 minus 2x, 15 minus 2x equal to x, and we say we are going to solve it by taking the square of both sides. This will be the square root of 15 minus 2x squared is equal to x squared. So that the square will cancel the root, and you'll be left with 15 minus 2x is equal to x squared. So we want to calculate for x now. So we are going to keep everything on one side. Here is what I mean. Minus 2x will come here, and you will be having 15 is equal to x squared plus 2x, because here is minus 2. When it goes to the other side, it becomes plus 2x. Again, we want to calculate for x. Keep this in mind. So how do we calculate for x? We can calculate for x here using a quadratic method. But before we do that, let's also take 15 to the other side. Let's also take 15 to come here, so that we'll be having, if you take 15 to the other side, so here will automatically become 0, because there is no longer value, no any value here, there is no value here. So this will be 0 is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 15. So there is no more value on the other side, because you have already taken all the values to the right hand side. So there is no more value on the other side. So that is why you have 0. So you now have a quadratic equation, x squared plus 2x minus 15. And you want to calculate for x. So how do we say you can calculate for x when you have a quadratic equation? There are different methods. You can use the formula method. You can solve by factorization, and also you can solve by completing the square method. So we have already discussed formula method, and also we have discussed factorization methods in our previous lessons. So let's use factorization here again to see how to get the values of x. So for us to solve by factorization, we say that first you have to multiply the constant with the coefficient of x. You have to multiply the constant with the coefficient for x. So our constant is 15, and the coefficient of x is 1. The coefficient of x squared rather, sorry, is 1. So 1 times 15 will still give you 15. So our equation will now be x squared plus 2x minus 15, because 1 times 15 is still 15. Then the next thing is to find two numbers that if you multiply them, it will give you minus 15, and by the time you add them, it will give you plus 2. That is, if you multiply them, it will give you the constant, and if you add them, it will give you the number at the middle. You look for two numbers. So the two numbers here will be what? What will be the two numbers? So let's do it first. So 3 times 5 will give you 15. But will 3 plus 5 give you 2? Of course no. But 5 minus 3 will give you 2. So that means the two numbers are plus 5 and minus 3. So 5 minus 3 will give you plus 2, and then 5 times minus 3 will give you minus 15. So these are our two numbers. So we'll now put the two numbers into this equation, and this will become x squared plus 2x, not 2x again, but the two numbers which we have plus 5x minus 3x, because if we add them, it will give us back the 2x, that's the one at the middle, minus 15. If we add these two numbers, 5x and minus 3x, it will give us back 2x, which is our original equation. So but we are just using this number so that we can be able to separate and solve for x. So from here now you will separate, because you now have four terms. You will separate the equation into two equal terms. So separate this one here and also separate this one here. So after separating, you now bring out the common factors of each of the halves. The separation, you now bring out the common factors. So here we have x squared plus 5x. So the common factor here is x, because x is common to the two times. We have x squared plus 5x. So x is common to the two. So we bring out one of the common factor. Then we'll now think about a number that, or a value that if we multiply it with x, it will give us back x squared. And that number is x, because x times x will give you back x squared. Then plus, which number again are you going to multiply with x to give you 5x? So the number is 5, because x times 5 will give you 5x. So x times x here will give you back x squared, and then x times 5 will give you back 5x. So you have already factored out the first bracket. So let's factor out the second bracket. Let's factor out the common value in the second bracket. So in the second bracket we have, don't forget the sign, we have minus. Then which number is common to the two terms? We have 3x and we also have 15. So the common value there will be 3, because 3 can go into 3x and also 3 can go into 15. So we bring out 3, open bracket. So 3 multiplied by what will give you back 3x. So definitely it will be x, because 3 times x will give you back 3x. And then also 3 times what will give you minus 15. So 3 times 5 will give you minus 15. So you have to take note here, because here we have minus 15 and then here we have minus 3. So you have to think of a number that if you multiply it with 5, it will give you back minus 15. So the number is plus 5, because minus 3 times plus 5 will give you minus 15. But if you use minus 5, minus 3 times 5 times minus 5 will give you plus 15. So you have to take note of the sign. So now that you have factored it out, you now take the numbers that are outside of the bracket. The number that are outside, which are x and then minus 3, are outside. So you put them into one bracket, x minus 3, and then the number that are inside the bracket, you can see that we have two common numbers, so we have to take one only. So this will be x plus 5. So this is the factored form. But if you are calculating for x, you set each of these factors to be equal to 0. That is, x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. So you now calculate for x. If we bring it here, it will be x is equal to 3, or x is equal to minus 5. So these are the two values of x in this particular expression. So we have another problem that we should solve x squared plus 8x plus 16 is greater than or equal to 0. So it is an inequality. This is the sign of the inequality, greater than or equal to 0. But you don't have to panic because you see greater than or equal to 0. All you have to recall how to solve a quadratic equation by factorization. by using formula method. Just recall the steps involved and you can solve it without having any stress. So you have x squared plus 8x plus 16. How do you solve it? Greater or equal to 0. X squared plus 8x plus 16 is greater than or equal to 0. So you can solve it again by using factorization method, or you can use formula method. So whichever method you use, it will work out. So now, if you want to use uh, um, factorization method, again you are going to multiply the constant with the coefficient of x and then find the two numbers that if you add them, it will give you the number at the middle, and when you multiply them, it will give you the constant term. So this will be x squared. So the two numbers are 4 plus 4 4. 4 times 4 will give you 16, and 4 plus 4 will give you 8. This will be plus 4x plus 4x, because plus 4x and plus 4x, it will give you back 8x, then plus 16 is greater than or equal to 0. So from here you now separate. From here you now separate them and then factor out the common factor of the first bracket. So the common factor, we have x squared plus 4x. The common factor is x. So we'll think about the number that if we multiply it with x, it will return back the x squared, and the value is x. X times x will return back this x squared. Then we also think of a number that if we multiply it with x, it will return back 4x. The number is basically 4, because 4 times 4 will give you 4x. We have done factoring the first bracket. Then let's factor out the second bracket. Bring out the sign first. So we have 4x plus 16. So the common number there is 4, because 4 can go into 4 and also 4 can go into 16. So we bring out the common factor. Then think about a number that will multiply it with 4, that will give us back 4x. So the number is x, or the value variable is x, because 4 times x will give us 4x. And then which number are we going to multiply it with 4 to give us 16? So the number is 4. 4 times 4 will return back 16. So we have greater than or equal to 0. So the values outside the bracket, we bring them down. So these values are x plus 4. Here are the values. They are outside, x plus 4. And then we'll take one of the values inside the bracket. We either take this one or we take this one. We'll just take one of them because they are the same. So we also have x plus 4 greater than or equal to 0. So from here now, we'll set each of the factors to be equal to 0. We have x plus 4 greater than or equal to 0, or x plus 4, that is the other factor now, is greater than or equal to 0. So you now solve for x by taking 4 to the other side. You have x is greater than or equal to -4.